applies to today. So in a crisis situation, in whether from management or leadership, and to kind of set the thread there, I fundamentally believe there's a difference between a manager and a leader. A manager does things right. A leader does the right thing. And in times like this, there needs to be that type of balance. And what I have found, and this is just one person's approach, again, do not have all the answers, but whatever little tidbits I can throw out for everyone's dissemination and consideration is this: is anticipation is key, and information is critical. There's you know, one of the things that you have to do as you see a situation on the horizon is anticipate it, and then get the collective wisdom, whoever's within your sphere, together to address that horizon. I've always found it beneficial to, right off the bat, get all the smart people together and assume a worst case scenario, and then from that scenario, you back down a bit, and then look at branch and sequels, look at contingencies. And that's very important. The sooner you can get in front of that, the sooner you can get inside of an entity's decision circle, or in this case, a virus's progression for what we know or what we don't know. I think the better off you and your agency will be. And back to the leadership and manager. Whether you're the manager, whether you're the leader, whether you're part of this group, trying to provide that information source, that contingency planning to help move those that you serve forward, make no mistake about it, there's a difference between leadership and likership. There's going to have to be hard decisions in any type of crisis, and they're not going to be popular to 100% of the people. And this goes back to managing and leading. You do the right thing. You take the information that you have, you take the projections you were able to ascertain, and then you make the best decision possible for those that you serve. And quite frankly, also in times of these crises, you're going to be focused in on your organization, your path, your potential solutions. But I would also add, don't lose sight of the community that you are involved with, and giving back when and as much as you can. So with that as kind of a scene setter, I will give you a quick synopsis of what we've been doing here at Wesley, and then I'll just turn it over for open discussion and questions. So as the COVID pandemic was in its very, very, very early stages, I would say when the cases were starting to be announced, the trends were starting to be seen, some discussions in this country were starting to be had, I stood up a coronavirus action group. And again, I got some of the collective wisdom here at the campus together, faculty, staff, brought in board members for discussion, reached out to alumni for their input. And part of this coronavirus action group, or CAG as we called it, we also had a student participate. He's the head of our student government here. And we started first to create the bedrock of information. So if you go to the Wesley College webpage, right across the top in yellow will be our coronavirus COVID-19 information page. We set up a page that for our campus community was a one-stop shop. And on that page on the right, it's got everything from president updates to CAG updates to registrar updates to commencement, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then underneath that, it has a place for national updates, state updates. So if you have no other place to go, you go to our page as a member of our campus community, and that information is there in readily accessible format. I provide weekly updates to the campus, and they come out every Tuesday. So once we started this battle rhythm going, campus community knew that Tuesday there would be something to read. We have an emergency alert system. It's text. And we don't use that for updates, but what we do use it for is point people to that website. And then in addition to that, as updates are posted, I send out something email to all faculty, staff, and students. So the point of that is there's multiple ways of getting the communication out. And in each of the updates, there are various themes that I'll repeat in subsequent updates. Because again, as you provide information to those you serve, know that 100% of your information is not going to reach 100% of the people 100% of the times. So the important aspects of that you want to revisit so that you give everyone every opportunity to get the vital information that's needed. So that was step one, getting the smart people together, getting an information base created. And then the second part was contingency planning. So even before it became an issue, we started looking at things. Hey, if this outbreak really impacts us, what are we going to do? How are we going to provide the educational opportunities to our students that we have been providing and do it in as seamless a manner as possible? And then you start stepping through all the various levels of possibility from, well, it's really not going to impact us to it might impact us a little bit. So how do we do education here and distant, or it's going to have significant impact on us? And are we ready to shift totally remotely? How are we going to do that from an educational standpoint? How are we going to address some of the needs here on campus? And then the final thing is now we're completely off campus. So we did those plans, those what ifs early on. And as things started to ramp up, we were already in a position to start executing some of those. The other thing we looked at very early on, and all of you are part of our Delaware family, and I would like to thank our extended Wesley College family. So you know that there's been a lot of challenges at this college, and quite frankly, challenges for close to a decade plus in terms of just like a lot of small schools, how do you deal with the low enrollment? How do you keep doing what you can do? Having said that, and part of the contingency planning, we started looking at, well, depending on how difficult this gets, how widespread this virus gets, and if we have to go to the completely off campus or a modification in online learning, what do we do with the staff? What do we do with the educators? What do we do with the groundsmen, the coaches? And we went through those various scenarios, and I took recommendations and finally made a decision very early on. And the reason I bring that up is, you know, now as you look across the spectrum of our community, there's folks that are out of work. There are furloughs. There are layoffs. If you look across the spectrum of higher education, a lot of schools are going to that. I made the decision early on that we would not furlough or we would not lay off anybody for the remainder of this student year. Was that a difficult decision? Oh, you bet. Are we going to have to do some creative things with accounts payable? Absolutely. And as some of you may know, we are in discussions with a potential partner that could possibly provide long-term stability, not just for the college here, but for the educational opportunities in the state. The reason I did that, because of the fact that we were in this tenuous time with a partner and anxiety was already high at the college. Again, the key, make this as seamless as possible. I thought that was the best thing for our campus and our community. And one of the things in leadership, and again, this is one man's opinion, and again, I used to tell my sailors this as well, leadership can be boiled down to a very simple premise. And a leader's main purpose for those that he serves, and make no mistake about it, the higher you are up in whatever your perceived leadership continuum is, that doesn't mean position, that doesn't mean title, that doesn't mean anything else, but you are now given the privilege to serve more folks. The basic premise of leadership boiled down is simply this: you are there to provide order and normalcy from chaos. And that went in the decision to, we're not going to furlough. We will take it out of hide. We will reduce senior type compensation to allow to extend some things. And we'll see how it unfolds. We had no idea at the time where this would lead us. But as you know, subsequent to our little CAG and some of the contingency planning, the CARES Act came out. And where it impacts higher ed is twofold. One, there is what's called the Higher Education Relief Fund that comes out under the CARES Act, where basically they listed, and it's 80-some pages long, every single college, university, this is the money we're going to provide you to provide assistance to your students. Half of which has to go directly towards some type of student support, student aid, and the other half is kind of up in the air. Even the student aid half is kind of ambiguous, and there's going to be more guidance to follow from this act. But again, there's some potential relief. The other thing is the Small Business Administration is handling what's called the Payment Protection Plan. Well, because of the cuts we'd already made at Wesley and the decision not to furlough or fire way back when, early on, we actually qualified for that as well. And so that's ending up helping me secure the benefits, the salaries for the faculty and the staff that, quite frankly, we did not know going forward. So the CAG meets every single day. I come in on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays to see if I can help with anything. And it runs the gambit of planning early on how to go to virtual, which we did. And being a campus that does not have a lot of online programs, I was absolutely humbled and amazed by how seamless it was and the way our faculty and staff engaged quickly. But they had the roadmap, if you would, by the CAG, which again was made up by faculty and staff. We jumped on very early with athletics, how that was going to be handled, because we looked at that at the CAG. So in terms of being a community partner and helping your neighbor, I was then able to present that out to our conference and even some levels of the NCAA going, this is what we are considering now. And quite frankly, that's what ended up coming to fruition later. But we had already set the stage with that, had the communications with our coaches, our student athletes, the personal communications, so they understood how important their experience was to me, but also the reality of the situation and how we were going to attack that to ensure their safety and those of our Wesley College family. The other thing, we've reached out to our community. Because we were able to stand up early, because we were able to contingency plan and get a battle rhythm going on early, and I don't want to use the word freed us up because everybody's doing the 24/7 dance like you all are. But it allowed that opportunity to look outside ourselves, look out to the greater community that we serve. I mean, not just from an educational standpoint and eventual alumni standpoint, but in the needs of our community right now. And so two of our contractors or partners, Airmark for food service and National for our maintenance, I called them in as part of the Wesley College family. And I said, hey, look, our community is hurting right now, as every community across the country is. But quite frankly, this is the community I'm part of, and this is the community I'm here to serve. And is there anything we can collectively do to help this community? And not to get in all the details, but just to give you an example of, again, how in crisis management, in crisis leadership, if planned early, executed with metrics you can follow, frees up time and resources to provide the community. Here's a couple examples. So we don't have a lot, but what we did have, we provided to Bay Health because of our nursing program in terms of protective equipment. We gave 300 masks, 200 of the 95 masks, and this was our complete inventory, and 100 sets of personal protective gowns to our partners at Bay Health, the heroes that are on the front lines of this, to use as they see fit. Also, because of a whole host of things, we had to remain on campus, have 22 students stay, so we could not completely send the whole student body home. And these are some folks that had extraordinary situations, to be frank, with family, which you are. Some kids just didn't have a place to go. So 22 students resided here. And so obviously our food service provider stayed to provide meals. Well, since we had a food service provider providing meals, a way we could say thank you to the healthcare heroes is at Easter time, our food service provider made food baskets. And we loaded up a truckload with little, thank you for all you do. You know, you are a hero. And every department of Bay Health got a food basket, our way of saying thanks. And then also what extra supplies we've had in terms of sanitizers and wipes, we've sent that over for Bay Health for stock. And finally, we're in discussions with Bay Health because though we have 22 students here, we still have some excess capacity. They had reached out in terms of would we ever consider providing residence halls for healthcare staff that as they are on the front lines, instead of going home, coming over here for a place to lay their head and rest. And the answer was whatever we can do as a neighbor, we're all in. And we've had similar discussions with the state. So there's a fairly quick of how something was set up, some of my thoughts in terms of guidance I provide, and then contingency planning, and then also because of the early entry that we had into this, provided us also to think outside of just the immediate campus community, but our much broader community and extended Wesley College family. And so with that, I open up for questions or discussions.
Bob, one of the things that we're doing now, you know, as a chamber, I mean, we started very similar as you know, right off the bat, we realized the best thing that we would be able to do would be to provide people with information.
Yes.
You know, so we started developing a lot of different mechanisms for providing information to our membership. And, you know, I think that we've done a really good job of keeping people in the know as far as what things are happening and where to go to for information. We've been having a lot of various meetings with, you know, our congressional delegation, with our governor's office and his team, with our county, with our city, and we just kind of all continue to keep working kind of as a group to figure out a path forward. What we're kind of working on now is trying to develop kind of what are really going to be the steps when our businesses can open back up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's
an important
really
discussion to have. Yeah, and in fact, we started that about 2 weeks ago in terms of what is the fall going to look like, in terms of what are some branches and sequels, and clearly with our potential partner, we're in very significant discussions about that because that's impacting them on a much broader scale. The one thing you did touch on though, Judy, and I think it's important is you can quickly get to information overload in these situations. So as I mentioned, there's these updates I provide to the campus community. It's posted online, and just like y'all, copies go to all levels of leadership here in the state. Excuse me. But I also then send out notes to the students regularly. And then there's various notes that go to campus. I guess my point of that is, as much as possible, trying to control the message to the audience you're delivering it to. Because sending out just, here's information, you can get overloaded very quickly. So it goes back to trying to, you know, difference between speaking and communicating, or messaging and communicating. I mean, speaking and messaging, that can happen and the data goes out, but unless it's understood and acted on, how do you know that from a communication standpoint? So we're kind of unique in a sense that there's metrics we've been able to put in place here to really see if our guidance is operationalized. Specifically, I'll give you an example, you know, for students. So we talk about, you know, with them, because we get a lot of questions as well. Hey, Prez, where's this going? To your point, what does the future hold? You know, how are we going to do commencement, or is there going to be a fall? And I tell folks, go day by day. Horizon right now is like the first or second week in June, because I think if you project too much, there could be a setup for a slight setback, where if that date doesn't happen, people get the hope and they're going to, well, it's really going to be good on this date, and that date comes and it's not so good. Trying to provide focus points and small wins keeps people marching forward. Every day, you know, every day's a new day. And then for us, the horizon is the first or second week in June. But one of the metrics we use here for the students, for example, because I tell them, I said, there's a lot of discussion about a vaccine. Well, we have one now, and it's a social and behavioral vaccine. And each and every one has an impact on how this spread happens and how we kill it. And that sounds great. Stay in your room, only exercise on campus, all that, rah kind of stuff. How do we know the guidance is operationalized? So to get into our residence halls, you have to swipe. So we can monitor and see what time people come and go. And we've had a little peaks where times where people were leaving and coming back were not in line to what the policies were. And there's an educational feedback. Okay, come on, it's serious about this. And on a broader sense, I know you're dealing with that and state leadership in terms of, social distancing or you still walk around and you see people playing touch football. So the reason I use that to what are we going to do when we open? Right now, we still have to get our arms around today and tomorrow and next week with some planning in terms of how do we potentially reopen, whether it's a business, whether it's a school at some later date, with the understanding that that aperture is so incredibly wide that one end of it is you open and everything's the same, which I personally believe we're going to be in a new normal. Going back to where we were 8 months ago, one man's opinion, it's not going to happen. The other end of the spectrum is, hey, we're not reopening. I don't think that's going to happen either. It's got to be somewhere in between. And the more you can do, I call it tabletop planning, and you have a red team and a blue team, and the red team shoots down all the ideas and the blue team moves it forward, the better you can be. But I again, just my opinion, anything past June, we just don't have the data. We don't have the understanding to even, from the NCAA standpoint, there's discussions right now. Will there be fall sports? And I've had that with friends of mine at Division I, and I've had that with friends of mine who coach in the pros. And there's serious discussions. If that doesn't happen, the ripple effect from an economic standpoint is unbelievably significant. And it gets to your point to, how are we going to reopen? So that's a terrible answer, but that's the best I can do.
Yeah, but it is the truth. We just all kind of have to take it one day at a time. I know we're going to be starting to run short on time. So John, Lisa, anybody else? Heather, Cindy, Crystal, anybody got a question for Bob Clarke?
No, thank you, Bob, for sharing your thoughts. We appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. And we're all in this together. And my thoughts are just a small snippet of the other thoughts out there. And that's the other point I made to our CAG. Gosh, we've got so many smart people at this campus. We've got so many smart people in the community, smart and caring. We've got people on the front lines, healthcare workers, the food distributors, the truck drivers. As tough as these times are, the beauty of times like this is we truly come together as a people, and we become much stronger on the other side. The other thing I shared with my campus the other day, and I'm going to throw this out and then I'm going to go quiet, is I truly believe that it is the selfless and the serving who can see beyond one's own narrow needs that'll reap the rewards of humanity's judgment. And I told that to my community and my kids, because this is not a time for individuality. Isolation and remote does not mean you do your own thing. This is truly a time for how do we make it better for others? How do we come together and improve our community? So we're all in this together, Lisa, and I truly, truly believe we'll get through it. We'll find a way. But we are, make no mistake about it, in my opinion, we will be in a new normal that will not be anything like we were 6 or 7 months ago.
Unfortunately, I think you're right. You kind of hate to have to say it out loud, but yeah, I think it will be a long time before we'll be back to where we were.
Mm-hmm. But that's okay. We'll be better for it. We'll find ways. Think of all the things we're learning about our crisis preparedness, our supply chain, our infrastructure. you know, and though this has been devastating to so many families and so many communities, imagine something that would have had a 60% mortality rate. So having this virus gets us into where we start looking at, though there was a time where it made sense to outsource medicine, what I would call some of the critical needs of a country. Now you got to step back and say, maybe we should produce our own medicine. Maybe we should produce our own protective equipment. And now we've had this test, this coronavirus, to work through some of that. So when the next thing hits, hopefully we'll be better off.
I think we will be in the long run.
Oh, absolutely.
I think as a nation, we absolutely have found out where our weak links are. You know, if nothing else, it has showed us where we have the ability to get better and be better. Yeah. So I really appreciate everything that you're doing. John, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I would just say that, you know, as a guy who retired from the United States Air Force, just refreshing to hear your leadership. I know that you're a college president, but it was also awesome to hear such sound leadership that I know came from your days when you were involved with the Navy, and that the school is in great hands. And I think as you're meeting with your committee and you were very proactive before all of the things were happening, it's a great example, as you said, of the things and lessons that we've learned through all of this, that we always have to be in a state of readiness. You know, something like this is not imaginative. This can really happen. It did happen. And so, you know, going forward, you know, listening to your comments of what you've done with your staff gets us as a community to be more prepared. So I even look at it, Judy, from a business standpoint, that, you know, the Central Delaware Chamber is doing such an amazing job of constantly bringing us together as a community, that to have this type of outreach lets everybody know that we really care about where they are and where we're going to be going.
Thanks, John. Yeah, it's about people. It's about relationships. It's about community. And again, like Judy said, we'll get through. I mean, we as a people, we've faced a lot worse.
Yes.
Way. And you just ride around and you look at the sacrifices people are making, but also the coming together that we have had as a community. It's heartwarming, you know. So with the darkness, there is the dawn. And I think that's one of the things we need to continue to remind ourselves.
Very good.
Well, thank you all very much. And thank you again, Bob, for doing this for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, you shared some great information. We've recorded this session.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah. I know we all look okay. We're all okay.
Shoot.
And we're going to go ahead and have this up on our website. So for people who couldn't join us, because there are a series of Zooms happening all over, as we all know, everybody's jumping from one Zoom meeting to the next. So we're going to put it up on our website so that people can tune in and hear what you had to say, because I think you gave some very good information. I think you outlined some very active steps that if people haven't started taking, they can start doing it now, because it's not too late. You know, you have
it's never too late. And thank you for all that you all do, and for your engagement, your leadership, your energy. I mean, just seeing you makes me smile. I mean, you're always so upbeat, and that's important. And you know, again, social distancing, remote learning, that doesn't equal isolation. So we need to continue to look outside ourselves. We got to continue to look to where we can make a difference in our community, in our neighborhood. And I tell the kids here, and I remind myself every day, you wake up every day and you make a commitment to learn something new. You wake up every day and you make a commitment to better yourself and better those around you. And whether it's virtual, whether it's a simple act of kindness, whether it's a word of hope, every single day, if each and every one of us do that, it's going to be a better place during a pandemic or not. It's these that remind us how important things like that, like John said, how important things like that simple kindness goes a long, long way. And I truly hope as we get through this, which we will, and we go back to our individual lives, we never lose sight of the fact that we're placed on this earth not for our self-fulfillment, but for enrichment and benefiting others that we serve and in the communities that we live.
Well, if there's anything that we can do on the chamber side to help Wesley, please don't hesitate to call and let us
Oh, you've been
know.
awesome. Everybody.
So thanks, everybody, and thanks for being on the Zoom meeting. And if you need anything, we're here. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Judy. Y'all be safe.
Yep,
Hey,
take care all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.